Good morning, my friends. My name is Melissa from Melissa's Struggling Walk with Jesus. I'm here in Springfield, Missouri on Wednesday, October 8th, about 7:39 in the morning. I am here sharing the Amplified Holy Bible and the Navigator's Bible reading plan with you, and I am going to read the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 13 through 17 in this video. Chapter 13 starts out with shun idolatry, and it says, "If a prophet arises among you, or a dreamer of dreams, and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder which he foretold to you comes to pass, and if he says, 'Let us follow after other gods whom you have not known, and let us serve and worship them,' you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind, and all your soul, your entire being. You shall walk after the Lord your God, and you shall fear and worship him with awe-filled reverence and profound respect. And you shall keep his commandments, and you shall listen to his voice, and you shall serve him and cling to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has counseled rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you from the land of Egypt, and redeemed you from the house of slavery, to draw you away from the way in which the Lord your God has commanded you to walk. So you shall remove the evil from among you. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son or daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend, who is as precious to you as your own life and soul, entices you secretly, saying, 'Let us go and serve other gods,' gods whom you neither knew, gods whom neither you nor your fathers have known, of the gods of the peoples who are around you, near you or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other. You shall not consent to him or listen to him, and your eyes shall not pity him, nor shall you spare him or conceal him. Instead, you shall most certainly execute him. Your hand shall be first to be raised against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. So you shall stone him to death with stones, because he has tried to draw you away from the Lord your God, who brought you from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery." Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and will never again do such a wicked thing among you. If you hear it said in one of your cities, which the Lord your God gives you to live in, that some worthless and evil men have gone out from among you, and have tempted the inhabitants of their city to sin, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods whom you have not known," then you shall investigate and search out witnesses, and ask thorough questions. If it is true and the matter is established that this loathsome thing has been done among you, you shall most certainly strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it and all that is in it, even its livestock, with the edge of the sword. Then you shall collect all its spoil and plunder into the middle of its open square, and burn the city and set fire to the spoil as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. It shall be a ruin forever. It shall not be built again. Nothing from that which is put under the ban, designated for destruction, shall cling to your hand, so that the Lord may turn away from his burning anger and show mercy to you, and have compassion on you, and make you increase, just as he swore to your fathers, because you have listened to and obeyed the voice of the Lord your God, keeping all his commandments, which I am commanding you today, and doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord your God. That is all of chapter 13. Verse 6 says, "If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son or daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend who is as precious to you as your own life, soul, entices you secretly, saying, 'Let us go and serve other gods,' gods whom neither you nor your fathers have known, where it says the wife. Other literature has the wife of your bosom. All right, so moving on to chapter 14. This is talking about clean and unclean animals, and it says, You are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves, nor shave your forehead, for the sake of the dead. For you are a holy people, set apart to the Lord your God. And the Lord has chosen you out of all the peoples who are on the earth to be a people for his own possession. You shall not eat anything that is detestable to the Lord and forbidden by him. These are the animals that you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. Among the animals you may eat any animal that has the divided hoof, that is, a hoof split into two parts, especially at its distal extremity, and that chews the cud. However, you are not to eat any of these animals among those which chew the cud, or among those that divide the hoof in two, the camel, the hare, and the shuffin. For though they chew the cud, they do not split the hoof. They are unclean for you. The swine, because it has a divided hoof but does not chew the cud, it is unclean for you. You shall not eat their meat, nor touch their carcasses. Of all creatures that are in the waters you may eat these. Anything that has fins and scales you may eat. But you may not eat anything that does not have fins and scales. It is unclean for you. You may eat any clean bird, but these are the ones which you shall not eat: the eagle, the vulture, and the black buzzard, and the red kite, the falcon, and the birds of prey of any variety, and every raven of any variety, and the ostrich, the owl, the seagull, the hawk of any variety, the little owl, the great owl, the long-eared owl, the pelican, the carrion vulture, the cormorant, the stork, and the heron of any variety, and the hoopoe, and the bat. And all flying insects are unclean for you. They shall not be eaten. You may eat any clean bird. You shall not eat anything that dies on its own. You may give it to the stranger, resident alien, or foreigner who is in your city gates, so that he may eat it. Or you may sell it to a foreigner, since they are not under God's law. But you are a people holy, set apart to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat or a lamb in its mother's milk. Every year you shall certainly tithe 1/10 of all the yield of your seed which is produced by your field. You shall eat the tithe, 1/10 of your grain, your new wine, your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and your flock before the Lord your God, in the place where he chooses to establish his name and presence, so that you may learn to fear and worship the Lord your God with all-filled reverence and profound respect always. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to set his name and presence is a great distance from you, and you are not able to carry your tithe, because the Lord your God has blessed you with such an abundance, then you shall exchange your tithe for money, and take the money in your hand and go to the place of worship which the Lord your God chooses. You may spend the money for anything your heart desires, for oxen or sheep or wine or other strong drink, or anything else you want. You shall eat there in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household. Also, you shall not neglect the Levite who is within your city gates, for he does not have a share in land or an inheritance among you. At the end of every 3rd year you shall bring out all the tithe of your produce for that year, and shall store it up within your city gates. The Levite, because he has no share in land or an inheritance among you, and the stranger, and the orphan, and the widow who are within your city gates, shall come and eat and be satisfied, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. That is all of chapter 14. All right, verse 1 says, You are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves, nor shave your forehead for the sake of the dead. Where it says, You shall not cut. These practices were mounting customs associated with paganism. where it says shave your forehead. Other literature says make a baldness between your eyes. Verse 7 says, however, you are not to eat any of these animals among those which chew the cud, or among those that divide the hoof in two, the camel, the hare, and the shaphan. For though they chew the cud, they do not split the hoof. They are unclean for you. Where it says shaphan. This is a small, shy, furry animal found in the peninsula of the Sinai, northern Israel, and the region around the Dead Sea. The King James Version has the word coney. All right, verse 13 says, and the red kite, the falcon, and the birds of prey of any variety, where it says of any variety. Other literature has according to its kind, and so throughout this chapter. All right, verse 21 says, you shall not eat anything that dies on its own. You may give it to the stranger, resident alien, foreigner, who is in your city gates, so that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, since they are not under God's law. But you are a people holy, set apart to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat or a lamb in its mother's milk, where it says boil a young goat. This may refer to an ancient Canaanite fertility rite, though another possibility is that it is an affront to the Creator to kill an animal with the substance that was intended to nourish it. In any case, the rabbis later extended the law to prohibit the consumption of boiled meat upon which a drop of milk had fallen, if the milk imparted any flavor to the meat. Subsequent Jewish law has forbidden the serving of meat and dairy products together. All right, verse 23 says, you shall eat the tithe, the tenth of your grain, your new wine, your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and your flock before the Lord your God, in the place where he chooses to establish his name presence, so that you may learn to fear and worship the Lord your God with awe-filled reverence and profound respect always. In verse 23, this seems to refer to the communal meal, which was part of worship directed by the priest. Elsewhere, the tithe is designated for the priest in compensation for their services and for the needy. Check out Numbers chapter 18, verse 21, and Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 12. All right, we will move on to chapter 15. This is talking about the sabbatical year. And it says, at the end of every 7 years you shall grant a release, remission, pardon from debt. This is the regulation for the release. Every creditor shall forgive what he has loaned to his neighbor. He shall not require repayment from his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's release has been proclaimed. You may require repayment from a foreigner, but whatever of yours is with your brother, Israelite, your hand shall release. However, there will be no poor among you, since the Lord will most certainly bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess. If only you will listen to and obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all these commandments which I am commanding you today. When the Lord your God blesses you as he has promised you, then you will lead to many nations, but you will not borrow, and you will rule over many nations, but they will not rule over you. If there is a poor man among you, one of your fellow Israelites, in any of your cities in the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not be heartless nor close-fisted with your poor brother, but you shall freely open your hand to him, and shall generously lend to him whatever he needs. Beware that there is no wicked thought in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, remission, pardon, is approaching, and your eye is hostile, unsympathetic toward your poor brother, and you give him nothing, since he would not have to repay you, for he may cry out to the Lord against you, and it will become a sin for you. You shall freely and generously give to him, and your heart shall not be resentful when you give to him, because for this generous thing the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in all your undertakings. For the poor will never cease to be in the land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall freely open your hand to your brother, to your needy, and to the poor in your land. If your fellow Israelite, a Hebrew man or woman, is sold to you, and serves you for 6 years, then in the 7th year you shall set him free from your service. When you set him free, you shall not let him go away empty-handed. You shall give him generous provisions from your flock, from your threshing floor, and from your winepress. You shall give to him as the Lord your God has blessed you. And you shall remember and thoughtfully consider that you were once a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore I am commanding you these things today. Now if the servant says to you, I will not leave you, because he loves you and your household, since he is doing well with you, then take an awl and pierce it through his ear into the door, and he shall willingly be your servant always. Also you shall do the same for your maidservant. Check out Exodus chapter 21, verse 18. It shall not seem hard to you when you set him free, for he has served you 6 years with double the service of a hired man. So the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. You shall consecrate, set apart to the Lord your God, all the firstborn males that are born of your herd and flock. You shall not work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household shall eat it every year before the Lord your God in the place for worship which the Lord chooses. But if it has any defect or injury, such as lameness or blindness, or any serious defect, you shall not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You shall eat it within your city gates. The ceremonially unclean and the clean alike may eat it, as if it were a gazelle or a deer. Only once you shall not eat its blood. You are to pour it out on the ground like water. We're going to move on to chapter 16, and it starts out with the Feast of Passover. And it says, Observe the month of Abib and celebrate the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. You shall sacrifice the Passover lamb to the Lord your God from the flock or the herd, in the place where the Lord chooses to establish his name, presence. You shall not eat leavened bread with it. Instead, for 7 days you shall eat the Passover with unleavened bread, the bread of affliction. For you left the land of Egypt in haste. Do this so that all the days of your life you may remember thoughtfully the day when you came out of the land of Egypt. For 7 days no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory, and none of the meat which you sacrificed the evening of the first day shall remain overnight until morning. You are not allowed to sacrifice the Passover lamb in any of your cities which the Lord your God is giving you. But at the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name, presence, you shall sacrifice the Passover lamb in the evening at sunset, at the time that you come out of Egypt. You shall cook and eat it in the place which the Lord your God chooses. In the morning you are to return to your tents. For 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a celebration to the Lord your God. So you shall do no work on that day. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 16, starting with verse 9, is the Feast of Weeks. And it says, You shall count 7 days. You shall count 7 weeks for yourself. You shall begin to count 7 weeks from the first time you first put the sickle to the standing grain. Then you shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with a tribute of a freewill offering from your hand, which you shall give to him just as the Lord your God blesses you. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your son and your daughter, and your male and female servants, and the Levite who is within your city gates, and the stranger and the orphan and the widow who are among you, at the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name and presence. You shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and you shall be careful to obey these statutes. Deuteronomy chapter 16, starting with verse 13, is the Feast of Booths, and it says, You shall celebrate the Feast of Booths, tabernacles, 7 days, when you have gathered in the grain from your threshing floor and the wine from your wine vat. You shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son and your daughter, and your male and female servants, and the Levite and the stranger and the orphan and the widow who are within your city. 7 days you shall celebrate a feast to the Lord your God, in the place which the Lord chooses. because the Lord your God will bless you in all you produce and in all the work of your hands, so that you will be altogether joyful. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, at the feast of unleavened bread, Passover, and to the feast of weeks, Pentecost, and at the feast of booths, Tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, in accordance with the blessing which the Lord your God has given you. You shall appoint judges and officers in all your cities' gates, which the Lord your God is giving you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not distort justice. You shall not be partial, and you shall not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. You shall pursue justice and only justice, that which is uncompromisingly righteous, so that you may live and take possession of the land which the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not plant for yourself an asherah of any kind of tree or wood beside the altar of the Lord your God, which you shall make. You shall not set apart for yourself a sacred pillar, which the Lord your God hates. All right, so we're going to move on to chapter 17. The title is Administration of Justice, and it says, You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep with a blemish or any defect, for that is a detestable thing to the Lord your God. If there is discovered among you, within any of your cities, which the Lord your God is giving you, a man or a woman who does evil in the sight of the Lord your God by transgressing, violating his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, or the sun, or the moon, or any of the heavenly host, doing these things which I have commanded not to do. And if it is told to you and you hear about it, then you shall investigate thoroughly all the charges. If it is confirmed beyond doubt that this detestable thing has been done in Israel, then you shall bring that man or that woman who has done this evil thing to the gates of your city, and you shall stone the man or the woman to death. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, he who is to die shall be put to death. He shall not be put to death on the evidence of only 1 witness. The hand of the witnesses shall be the first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. So you shall remove the evil from among you. If any case is too difficult for you to judge, between one kind of homicide and another, between one kind of lawsuit and another, between one kind of assault and another, being controversial issues in your courts, then you shall arise and go to the place which the Lord your God chooses. So you shall come to the Levitical priest or to the judge who is in office at that time, and you shall consult them, and they will declare to you the verdict in the case. You shall act in accordance with the terms of the verdict which they declare to you from that place which the Lord chooses. You shall be careful to act in accordance with all of their instructions. You shall act in accordance with the law which they teach you and the judgment which they tell you. You shall not turn aside from that verdict to the right or to the left. The man who acts presumptuously and insolently by not listening to the priest who stands there to serve the Lord your God, nor to the judge, that man shall die. So you shall remove the evil from Israel. Then all the people will hear and be afraid, and will not act presumptuously again. When you enter the land which the Lord your God is giving you, and you take possession of it and live there, and you say, I will set a king over me like all the nations who are around me. You shall most certainly set a king over you whom the Lord your God chooses. You shall set a king over you from among your countrymen, brothers. You may not choose a foreigner to rule over you who is not your countryman. Further, he shall not acquire many war horses for himself, nor make the people return to Egypt in order to acquire horses to expand his military power, since the Lord said to you, you shall never return that way again. He shall not acquire multiple wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away from God. Nor for the same reason shall he require great amounts of silver and gold. Nor now it shall come about, when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a copy of this law on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priest. And it shall be within him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear and worship the Lord his God with awe-filled reverence and profound respect, by carefully obeying, keeping foremost in his thoughts and activity doing all the words of the law and these statutes, so that his heart will not be lifted up above his countrymen by a false sense of self-importance and self-reliance, and that he will not turn away or deviate from the commandment to the right or to the left, so that he and his sons may continue to reign for a long time in his kingdom in Israel.